There comes a season in every life when silence no longer feels empty. Instead, it becomes the place where the soul finally begins to breathe.
When we are young, we believe every opinion deserves our response. With time, we quietly realize that peace is... A quiet lake reflects the beauty of the whole sky because nothing within it struggles to prove itself. Perhaps wisdom grows in exactly the same way. The loudest voices often seek attention, while the strongest hearts quietly seek understanding. Silence has never belonged to the weak. It belongs to those who have learned that protecting their inner peace is worth more than winning another unnecessary argument. Ancient forests never compete for attention. They simply continue growing, allowing time itself to quietly reveal their strength to anyone willing to notice. The oldest trees rarely make the loudest sounds, yet generation after generation finds shelter. There is a quiet confidence that appears only after you stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided not to understand. Every unnecessary argument quietly steals a little of the peace you spent years learning to build. Some victories are simply too expensive to keep.
Perhaps silence was never about having nothing to say. Perhaps it has always been the wisdom of knowing what no longer needs to be said. Once your heart discovers real peace, you stop feeling responsible for correcting every misunderstanding. Some truths quietly reveal themselves without your help.
The forest never rushes to explain its beauty. It simply exists, and those who are patient enough eventually discover its quiet magnificence. Deep roots never compete with shallow branches. What is firmly grounded has no reason to fear the passing winds of temporary opinions. We waste enormous energy defending ourselves against people who never intended to understand us. Sometimes silence is simply choosing not to join a battle already lost.
Not every accusation deserves your defense. Sometimes your peaceful life becomes the only answer that truly matters.
The owl rarely speaks to the forest, yet it sees what restless creatures often miss. Quiet observation has always been a form of hidden wisdom. Listening carefully often reveals far more than speaking quickly. The world quietly shares its deepest lessons with those willing to observe before reacting.
The loudest room rarely holds the clearest thinking. Wisdom usually arrives softly, almost unnoticed, while everyone else...
Before answering another person, ask yourself a quieter question. Will these words truly create peace, or simply satisfy your pride for a moment?
Perhaps the greatest conversations are not the ones we win, but the ones we wisely choose never to begin. Every unnecessary argument begins with the hope of changing another person's mind. Wisdom quietly begins when we accept that not every heart is ready to listen.
The moon has never argued with the darkness surrounding it. It simply continues shining. Light never becomes brighter by fighting the darkness. It quietly transforms the night simply by continuing to exist with unwavering purpose. People who know their own worth rarely feel the need to announce it. Quiet confidence has always carried a strength that noise can never imitate.
Perhaps silence is not about saying less. Perhaps it is about allowing your life to become louder than your words.
From the top of the mountain, the noise of the valley quietly disappears. Distance often reveals how small yesterday's conflicts truly were. Perspective changes everything. The higher your understanding grows, the less desire you have to prove yourself to those standing far below. Ego constantly asks to be recognized. Wisdom quietly asks only to remain at peace, even when nobody notices its presence.
The mountain has never needed applause to become majestic. Its quiet greatness has always spoken. Maybe the strongest voice you will ever develop is the quiet confidence that no longer needs to convince anyone of its value.
There is a remarkable freedom waiting for those who finally stop measuring their worth through the opinions of people who never truly knew them.
Monasteries have always understood a forgotten truth. Silence is not emptiness, but a quiet space where restless thoughts slowly learn to settle.
Clear water never struggles to appear transparent. In the same way, honest character never needs endless explanations to prove its sincerity.
Many people spend their lives trying to appear wise. Truly wise people quietly spend their lives continuing to learn. Perhaps silence is the language spoken by people who understand that growth never ends, no matter how much they already know. A candle never competes with the darkness surrounding it. It simply continues giving light until the room quietly begins to change.
We rarely need enough light to see the entire future. We only need enough courage to take the next faithful step with confidence.
The brightest people are often the gentlest. Their strength quietly comforts others instead of demanding attention for themselves. Your peace will always shine brighter than your anger. The world remembers gentle light far longer than a brief flash of fire. Maybe true power has never been the ability to silence others, but the ability to remain peaceful when the world grows unbearably loud. The quieter your mind becomes, the more clearly you begin hearing truths that were always present beneath the endless noise of everyday life.
The stars never compete to become brighter than one another. Together, they quietly illuminate the darkness without asking which one deserves the most attention. Looking into the vast universe gently reminds us how small our pride becomes when placed beside the endlessness of time and creation. Many of life's deepest conversations happen without a single spoken word, shared only between a quiet heart and an endless sky.
Perhaps wisdom begins the moment we stop filling every silence with words and finally allow stillness to become our greatest teacher.
The oldest tree in the forest never argues about its strength. Every ring hidden inside its trunk quietly tells the story instead. Strong roots grow in silence beneath the earth. The greatest parts of our character often develop where nobody else is able to see. We admire great trees for their height, yet their true strength has always been hidden beneath the surface, where no applause can ever reach. The world often celebrates visible success, but life quietly rewards those who spend years building invisible character before seeking recognition.
Maybe the strongest people are not remembered because they spoke the loudest, but because their quiet lives became lessons that words could never fully express.
Every day gives us countless opportunities to react. Wisdom quietly reminds us that not every invitation deserves our emotional energy. The bridge never argues with the river beneath it. Both quietly fulfill their purpose without asking the other to become something different. Peace begins when we stop trying to change every person we meet and quietly begin changing the way we choose to respond. Calm people are not free from difficult situations. They have simply learned that inner peace is too valuable to exchange for temporary satisfaction.
Sometimes protecting your peace is not selfish. It is the quiet responsibility of someone who finally understands the value of a calm heart.
Bamboo survives the strongest storms because it bends without breaking. Quiet flexibility often carries a strength that rigid pride can never match. We often mistake stubbornness for courage, forgetting that nature quietly rewards those who know when to stand firm and when to gently yield. Listening is one of the quietest forms of respect. Many hearts heal simply because someone chose to understand before trying to be understood. Some of the strongest people you will ever meet are those who quietly carry burdens that the world will never fully notice.
Perhaps silence is not weakness at all. Perhaps it is the quiet strength that appears only after the heart has finally outgrown the need to prove itself. The most meaningful changes in life rarely happen with applause. They quietly unfold inside the heart, while nobody else even notices they have begun.
Morning dew never announces its arrival, yet it quietly nourishes every living leaf before disappearing without asking anyone to remember its name. Flowers never bloom to compete with the garden around them. They quietly become the fullest expression of what they were created to be. The moment you stop comparing your journey with everyone else's, your heart quietly discovers a peace that comparison could never allow.
Peace quietly arrives when you stop asking whether others approve of your life and begin asking whether your own soul feels at home.
The sea has never hurried to reach the shore. Even the greatest forces in nature understand the quiet power of patience. Every wave quietly reaches the shore without asking whether it will succeed. Consistency has always been stronger than occasional bursts of passion. The horizon reminds us that there is always more beyond what we can currently see. Hope quietly lives inside every unseen tomorrow. The ocean carries countless storms within its history, yet today it quietly reflects.
Perhaps the deepest silence is not found in the absence of sound, but in the presence of a heart that no longer needs to fight the world. There comes a beautiful day when your peace becomes more valuable than being understood, and everything inside you quietly begins to change.
Fruit never calls people toward the tree. Its quiet abundance becomes the invitation. Real character has always attracted more than loud self-promotion ever could. Trees spend decades quietly growing before they offer generous harvests. Lasting influence has always been built through patience rather than constant attention. The people who leave the deepest mark upon the world are often those who quietly devoted themselves to becoming better instead of becoming famous.
Perhaps the quietest life often becomes the loudest legacy, because truth continues speaking long after every unnecessary word has faded away.
Every sunrise arrives without making an announcement, yet the entire world quietly awakens because of its faithful presence. We cannot stop the sun from rising, just as we cannot stop life from moving forward. Acceptance quietly becomes the beginning of freedom. Every new morning quietly offers the same gentle invitation. Leave yesterday behind and step into today with an open and peaceful heart. The world becomes surprisingly quiet when we stop carrying yesterday's anger into today's sunrise.
Maybe silence was never something we needed to find outside ourselves. Perhaps it has always been patiently waiting within us. After all these quiet reflections, perhaps the greatest lesson was never how to speak more wisely, but how to listen more deeply to your own heart.
Every valley eventually opens toward another horizon. Life quietly reminds us that no difficult season has ever been asked to last forever.
The wind is invisible, yet we recognize its presence by the way it gently moves everything it touches. You do not need to control every outcome to live a meaningful life. Sometimes trusting the journey quietly becomes the greatest act of courage.
Peace quietly enters our lives the moment we stop demanding certainty from a future that has always unfolded one faithful step at a time.
The ocean receives every river without asking where it came from. Acceptance has always welcomed more than judgment ever could.
The sea quietly erases every footprint without regret.
In the end, silence is not the absence of sound. It is the gentle presence of a heart that has finally found nothing left to fight.
Perhaps the wisest people are not remembered because they answered every question, but because their quiet lives became answers for countless others.
And if today's silence remains with you long after these words have faded, perhaps you have already discovered that the greatest strength